Elias Rowan had never thought a single photograph could hold so much weight. He kept it tucked inside the inner pocket of his uniform, folded carefully, corners worn from years of being handled and never forgotten. It was a small, faded image of a young alien woman, her eyes wide and luminous, her smile both defiant and fragile. To anyone else, it was nothing. To him, it was proof of something humanity often forgot, that even in the vast emptiness of the galaxy, small acts of courage and loyalty could ripple across worlds. He adjusted his uniform as the shuttle descended toward the Aurelian Dominion capital, the city glittering beneath them like a sea of jeweled lights. Aliens of every shape and size moved in the streets, some walking upright with graceful elegance, others with long limbs that bent and twisted in ways humans had never been meant to. Elias' mission was simple on paper: attend the first diplomatic summit between human representatives and the Dominion, observe, report, and make no mistakes. But simple missions rarely stayed simple. Not when the past had a habit of finding you in the most unlikely ways. The shuttle door hissed as it opened, and Elias stepped onto the platform. He scanned the crowd, eyes adjusting to the alien architecture. Towers spiraled impossibly toward the sky, their surfaces shimmering with light that seemed alive. Hovercrafts buzzed overhead, carrying dignitaries and guards alike. The air smelled faintly of ozone and alien flora, a scent so unfamiliar it made his chest tighten with both awe and nervousness. He tucked the photo deeper into his pocket. No one could see it. No one could know it existed. He moved forward, joining the line of human delegates. The summit was a grand affair, held in the Aurelian Grand Hall, a building that looked as if it had grown organically from the ground. The walls pulsed with a soft, golden glow, reacting to the presence of those inside. Elias' heart raced as he approached the entrance. He had rehearsed this encounter in his mind countless times, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of reality. Inside, the hall was alive with beings from across the galaxy. Their forms were so varied that Elias' human mind struggled to categorize them. Some had translucent skin, revealing veins and pulsing organs beneath. Others had metallic exoskeletons that gleamed under the hall's light, yet all of them carried the same air of caution and power. Humans were newcomers here, still considered minor players in the delicate balance of galactic politics. It was a truth Elias had learned to accept, but it didn't make it any easier to bear. And then he saw her. Lureth, the Aurelian princess, was standing near the center of the hall, her presence commanding the attention of everyone around her. Her eyes, the same ones from the photograph, scanned the room with a sharp intelligence that seemed to pierce through every surface. Elias felt his chest tighten, a rush of memories flooding back, memories he had thought buried under years of duty and distance. She was alive, she had survived, and now she was looking at him. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The noise of the hall, the chatter of alien voices, the hum of distant engines, all of it faded into a background murmur. He wanted to look away to hide the photograph, but instinctively he found himself unable to. The photograph had been his secret, a silent reminder of humanity's courage and the risks they had taken to protect her years ago. And now she knew. Her gaze met his, and in that instant she whispered a single sentence that seemed to echo through the vast hall, though no one else could hear it. "I know you carry my photo." The hall seemed to tilt, and for a moment he felt as though he were suspended in a current he could not control. Lureth's eyes softened ever so slightly, just enough to hint at recognition, and Elias' mind raced. Memories of the escape, the fire, the chaos, the desperate sprint across the starship's deck, flashed before him. He had carried her, shielded her from weapons that could tear through steel as if it were paper, and now, years later, a simple photograph had become a bridge across time and space. The delegates around him continued their formalities, oblivious to the silent exchange happening across the hall. To everyone else, Elias was just another human delegate, quiet and composed. But inside, his mind was a whirlwind of questions and dread. How much did she know? Did she remember the night the human soldiers had risked everything to save her life? Did she understand what that photograph represented? Not just a face, but a promise, a memory, a debt. He tried to steady himself, to focus on the summit, but every word from the alien dignitaries felt distant, hollow. His attention was entirely consumed by her, the princess who had survived against impossible odds, the one who had somehow discovered the weight of a human's memory. Minutes passed like hours, and the summit continued. Discussions about trade agreements, interstellar law, and shared resources filled the room, but Elias barely heard them. Every so often he caught Lureth's gaze drifting toward him, sharp and inquisitive. It was as if she were silently questioning him, probing for truths he had not even voiced. He swallowed hard, trying to appear calm, to blend into the sea of diplomatic formalities, but the tension was a living thing between them. Later, as the summit recessed for a private session, Lureth approached him. Her movements were fluid, almost predatory in their grace, but her expression was calm, measured, yet laced with something he could not immediately identify. She stopped just short of him, close enough that he could see the subtle shifts in her irises, the way her lips pressed together almost unconsciously. "I remember you," she said softly, her voice a melody of warmth and authority. "From the night the stars burned around us and the galaxy seemed to fall silent. You carried me when no one else could." Her eyes flicked toward the photograph tucked inside his uniform, and for the first time, Elias realized that it wasn't just recognition in her gaze, it was understanding. She knew what it meant. She knew what humans could do when they chose to care. The galaxy had underestimated them, as it always did, believing them fragile, emotional, incapable of true influence. Yet here she was, acknowledging that their loyalty was something even the most powerful alien empires could not ignore. "You carry more than an image," she whispered. "You carry the past and somehow the future as well." The words were both a warning and a promise, a reminder that the past was never truly gone, and that the choices made in a single moment could reverberate across worlds and lifetimes. He wondered how many lives depended on that photograph remaining secret, how many empires balanced on the fragile hinge of memory and human courage. As the summit resumed, Elias found his thoughts consumed by the weight of her presence. He watched her move among the other dignitaries, her every gesture precise, controlled, yet imbued with a humanity that belied her alien form. It was a dangerous combination, the strength of a ruler tempered by the memory of those who had saved her life. He realized then that the galaxy would never see humans the same way again, not if she remembered, not if she chose to act on that knowledge. Hours later, the summit concluded, but Elias remained on edge. He walked through the golden halls, the photograph still tucked close to his chest, a talisman against the uncertainty of what was to come. Outside, the capital glimmered under the twin moons, a city alive with history, politics, and hidden threats. He knew that this encounter, brief though it had been, had already begun to change the course of his life, and perhaps the course of the galaxy itself. For the first time in years, Elias allowed himself to hope. Hope that the humans who had been dismissed, underestimated, and disregarded by the ancient empires might one day have their courage recognized. Hope that loyalty, memory, and the simple act of caring could be more powerful than any fleet weapon or law. And hope that the princess, alive against all odds, might one day stand beside them, not as a figure to be rescued, but as an ally who understood what humanity could truly accomplish. As the night settled over the Aurelian capital, Elias returned to his quarters, carefully removing the photograph and placing it on the small desk beside him. He traced the lines of her face with his finger, silently promising that he would never forget, never let the galaxy erase the memories of those who had mattered. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware that a single photograph and the whisper of an alien princess had already begun to reshape the future. And somewhere in the distance, Lureth's eyes watched him, unblinking, understanding more than anyone else in the room. The past and future were entwined, bound together by threads only humans seemed to recognize. And in that moment, Elias realized the truth. Humans might be small in the eyes of the galaxy, but the force of their memory, loyalty, and courage could change everything. Elias had barely slept. The memory of Lureth's whisper echoed in his mind, repeating over and over, "I know you carry my photo." The words felt like a key unlocking doors he had long tried to forget. The photograph he had carried all these years was more than an image. It was proof of a moment where humans had dared to act when the galaxy told them they were nothing. And now, that moment had returned to demand reckoning. He walked along the quiet corridors of the Aurelian palace, the golden light of dawn spilling through the crystalline walls. Every surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting not only the elegance of the city but also the immense weight of history. To anyone else, it would have been awe-inspiring. To Elias, it was a reminder that the galaxy did not forgive mistakes. One misstep could cost lives, entire fleets, entire civilizations. And now somehow that photograph had placed him squarely at the center of a storm he could not yet see. He was summoned to a secure chamber. When he entered, Lureth was already there, standing near a window that overlooked the city. The light caught her features in a way that made her appear both ethereal and intensely real. She did not speak immediately. She simply observed him, her eyes searching for something beyond the surface. "I have questions," she said at last, her voice calm but edged with urgency. "Questions only you can answer." His voice was steady, though inside, every memory he had tried to lock away surged forward, memories of fire, screams, and the desperate need to protect a life that was not his own by law, only by choice. Lureth's eyes softened. "I have survived because of humans," she said. "Because of you, because of that night when the world believed I was gone. Tell me everything. How did you save me? Why did you take such a risk?" But he began, slowly, recounting the story from memory, letting each detail paint the picture of human courage, not the courage that came from strength or size, but from loyalty and determination. He told her about the small human team that had volunteered for the extraction, a team that the galaxy had deemed expendable. About how they had infiltrated the Aurelian palace under the cover of darkness, moving silently, calculating every step with precision. About the moment when all seemed lost, and yet, by human ingenuity and sheer will, they had managed to carry her to the shuttle that would take them to safety. Lureth listened without interruption, her eyes never leaving his. When he finished, there was a long silence. Then she spoke, voice quieter, almost reverent. "I remember it all, not just the events, but the feeling, the way humans move when they choose someone to protect. It is different, dangerous in a way the galaxy cannot understand." The galaxy, for all its advanced technology and ancient power, had never taken human loyalty seriously. Other species believed humans were fragile, emotional, predictable. Yet here stood Lureth, an empress in waiting, acknowledging that human attachment, simple, steadfast, and stubborn, could alter the course of events more than fleets of warships or armies of soldiers. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "There is a new threat," she said. "A coup is brewing within the Dominion. Those who wish to see me dead are gathering strength. I fear this time it will not be limited to my own world. The galaxy itself could be pulled into the fire. Not a crisis threatening to ignite a civil war or worse, a galaxy-wide catastrophe. But he also knew what humans could do when cornered, when their loyalty and memory were challenged. They did not yield easily. "What can I do?" he asked. "How can humanity help without becoming the target themselves?" "By remembering me, by carrying that photograph." She paused, her gaze piercing. "Humans are underestimated because they do not seek power for themselves. That is their greatest weapon. If we move carefully, using the galaxy's underestimation of your species, we may yet survive this." They traced the network of traitors, discussed possible strategies, and considered how human forces could intervene without sparking open war. Elias realized that humanity's unique combination of cunning, courage, and unpredictability might be the only thing capable of countering the brewing threat. Other species calculated probabilities, but humans acted on loyalty. That was something no simulation could predict. Later, Elias walked through the palace gardens to clear his mind. Alien flora stretched toward the sky, some of it bioluminescent, some exuding fragrances that were entirely unfamiliar. Yet amid the beauty, he felt the tension pressing down like a physical weight. The galaxy was on a knife's edge, and he, a single human, held a memory that might tip the balance. As he walked, he considered the soldiers who had risked everything to save Lureth years ago. Most had returned to Earth, ordinary men and women living ordinary lives, never receiving recognition for the role they had played. But their actions had mattered. One photograph, carried across light years, now connected the past to the present in a way that might shape the future. Elias felt pride, yes, but also a heavy sense of responsibility. The galaxy had not forgiven carelessness in the past, and it would not forgive it now. Night fell over the capital, and the twin moons rose, casting pale light across the streets. Elias returned to his quarters, the photograph once again pressed close to his chest. Sleep would not come easily. His mind was alive with strategy, with potential outcomes, with the memory of a night when humans had acted not for glory, not for power, but simply because they refused to let another being die. He did not notice at first the small message blinking on the secure console beside his bed. A single line, simple and direct: "We are watching. Do not fail." Elias stared at it, heart hammering. The handwriting, or rather the signature, was unmistakable. Someone within the Dominion's power structure had noticed him, the photograph, and by extension the truth of human loyalty. He knew then that the coming days would be more dangerous than any mission he had ever undertaken. The photo, once a private reminder, had become a symbol. For some, a threat. For others, a promise. And in the galaxy's eyes, humans were still underestimated, still considered weak and predictable. But those who underestimated them would soon learn that memory, courage, and loyalty were forces that could change worlds. Elias spent the night reviewing plans, recalculating every possible move. He considered how human forces could act subtly, without overt aggression, relying instead on unpredictability and the advantage of being underestimated. He reviewed reports of potential allies, spies embedded within the Dominion, and the few human diplomats who had experience in covert operations. Each piece of information built a picture that he hoped would allow them to protect Lureth without triggering total war. By morning, he had a plan, a small, precise, and carefully calculated sequence of actions that could buy time and preserve life. He understood that the galaxy would not wait. Others would move, and their moves would be brutal and merciless. But humans had survived worse. They had survived without recognition, without acknowledgement, and now, when the stakes were higher than ever, their loyalty would be the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. When he entered the council chamber later that day, Lureth greeted him with a nod, her eyes acknowledging the weight of the plans he carried, the calculations he had made, and the courage he would need. "You are ready," she said simply. "The galaxy believes humans are insignificant. Let us show them otherwise." Not because of strategy alone, but because humans, when they chose to protect someone or something, were relentless. The galaxy had yet to understand the depth of that force, and he intended to make them see. In the hours that followed, messages arrived from hidden allies, confirming that the coup was already moving forward, the threads of betrayal tightening around the Dominion. The city was a delicate lattice of intrigue and danger, and every wrong step could ignite a chain reaction that might engulf entire star systems. Yet Elias remained calm. His focus was on the past, on the photograph, on the reminder of why humans acted as they did. That memory was not just a relic, it was the foundation of their strength. He spent the evening preparing, studying maps of the capital, noting the patrol routes, security measures, and potential weaknesses in the network of traitors. Each detail mattered. Each decision could tip the balance between survival and catastrophe. And all the while, he carried the photograph, a quiet anchor to remind him of why he acted, of what he was willing to risk, and of the promise made in silence years ago. As night settled over the Dominion once more, Elias looked out at the city from his window. Somewhere in the shadows, the coup forces were gathering. Somewhere, spies watched every move. But human memory, human courage, and human loyalty were forces the galaxy could not yet measure. And in the quiet, steady pulse of the photograph tucked close to his heart, Elias felt a certainty that few others in the galaxy would ever understand. Humanity would not abandon those they had chosen to protect. Not now, not ever. And somewhere across the city, Lureth prepared for the confrontation ahead, her thoughts intertwined with his, her trust placed in the species the galaxy had long dismissed. The future was uncertain, the threats immense, but together, human and alien, they held a chance to survive, to turn the tide, and to prove that even a single memory, carried across light years, could alter the fate of worlds. The city of the Aurelian Dominion was no longer quiet. Its streets, usually serene under the soft glow of the twin moons, now hummed with tension, as though the buildings themselves sensed the storm approaching. In the palace, Lureth moved with careful purpose, her usual calm edged with urgency. Guards had been doubled, patrols rerouted, and secret exits monitored, yet every precaution seemed fragile. The coup was not a distant rumor anymore. It was here, breathing through the shadows, striking at the heart of the Dominion. Elias Rowan stood in the command chamber beside her, studying holographic projections of the city and palace. Lines of code, troop positions, and sensor data blinked across the floating panels. Every dot represented a person, a threat, or a potential ally. Elias had spent hours calculating probabilities, predicting movements, and preparing contingencies, but the truth was simple. Nothing could fully prepare them for the chaos humans had learned to survive by instinct. Lureth's eyes, sharp and unwavering, met his. "They will move tonight," she said, "and when they do, it will not be subtle. My life and the lives of the innocent are at stake." Hours passed as the palace prepared. Human intelligence operatives moved discreetly through the city, gathering information, intercepting messages, and subtly warning key figures of the impending coup without revealing their own involvement. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but humans understood subtlety in ways others did not. They were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most advanced, but they were relentless, resourceful, and loyal. As the sun dipped behind the jagged towers of the capital, a signal arrived from the outer perimeter. Movement. Small teams of coup forces were advancing toward the palace, careful but growing bold. Lureth tensed, and Elias felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. It was time. The moment they had prepared for was arriving, and humans would prove why they were never to be underestimated. The palace doors shuddered as the first of the coup's forces tried to breach them. Alien guards engaged them immediately, but the attackers were prepared, their technology designed to bypass conventional defenses. A skirmish erupted in the outer halls, weapons flashing, the air alive with energy pulses and the harsh cries of combat. Elias moved swiftly, coordinating human operatives who had already infiltrated key positions within the palace. "This way," he whispered to Lureth, guiding her through a concealed passage that only humans and a handful of trusted aides knew. The passage wound beneath the palace, narrow and dark, yet it offered a path away from the chaos above. Lureth followed without hesitation, her trust in him absolute. Humans acted in moments like these because they had survived moments like these countless times before, not because they were fearless, but because their courage came from loyalty, not from the absence of fear. They reached a small observation chamber, high above the battle, where Elias could monitor the movements of both allies and enemies. Holographic projections flickered around him, highlighting the coup forces in red. "They are organized," he said, "but they do not anticipate coordinated human intervention." "Ineffective," she said, "and yet here you are planning while others fight blindly." Coup forces breached sections of the outer walls, only to be met by human operatives strategically positioned to intercept them. Every move was precise, every action calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing civilian casualties. Humans were not the largest force in the galaxy, but their ingenuity and coordination allowed them to punch far above their weight. Meanwhile, Lureth coordinated with her loyal guards, moving quickly to secure key positions and protect civilians. She had survived a previous coup, but this time she was not alone. Elias and his human team operated with silent efficiency, demonstrating a combination of courage, intelligence, and intuition that few in the galaxy could match. Hours into the conflict, the coup leaders realized they had underestimated the humans. The palace, which they had expected to fall quickly, was defended with precision that bordered on genius. Each attempt to advance was met with a counter that seemed to anticipate every strategy. Red lines on the holographic map, the enemy, shrunk as human operatives closed in from multiple directions, cutting off escape routes and isolating the most dangerous threats. Elias moved through the palace corridors like a shadow, guiding Lureth and her loyal aides while simultaneously coordinating strikes across the building. He had learned to read patterns in human behavior and enemy movements, predicting how both would react under pressure. It was a skill that had saved lives countless times before, and now it was saving the life of a princess and the stability of an entire empire. At one point, a corridor erupted in a flash of energy as a group of coup forces attempted to flank them. Elias reacted instantly, throwing himself into the path of the attackers and using a combination of agility and tactical skill to neutralize them. Lureth watched in awe, not for the violence itself, but for the human instinct to act decisively and without hesitation when someone they cared for was in danger. "You are remarkable," she whispered, catching her breath after the attack. I had heard stories of human bravery, but I had never seen it firsthand. The coup forces had called in reinforcements, but the humans anticipated this. Small teams struck from hidden positions, using the enemy's overconfidence against them. Each strike was surgical, precise, and devastatingly effective, weakening the opposition without exposing civilians or key figures. As the battle raged, Lureth realized something profound. The humans, dismissed by every empire and considered insignificant, were now the decisive force holding the Dominion together. Their strength was not in numbers or technology, but in their principles, their ability to act decisively in defense of those they valued. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and in doing so had made a fatal mistake. By the early hours of the morning, the tide of the battle began to shift. The coup forces, disorganized and demoralized by the unexpected efficiency and resolve of human operatives, began to retreat. Elias and his team continued to press forward, guiding Lureth to a secure command center where she could oversee the remaining loyal forces. The photograph, tucked safely in his uniform, seemed to hum with significance, a silent reminder of the chain of events that had brought them to this moment. Lureth's hands rested on the control panel as she coordinated the final phase of the counterattack. "We are not safe yet," she said, "but we have proven something important. Humans are more than anyone thought." "They will remember," he replied. "The galaxy will not forget this night, and neither will we." Yet amid the destruction, there was a sense of triumph, not for conquest or victory, but for survival, for the protection of life, and for the demonstration of human loyalty and skill. Lureth turned to Elias, her expression a mixture of relief, admiration, and something deeper, trust. "You have carried me through this night as you did years ago," she said softly. "And the galaxy will see now what humans are capable of when they choose to act. That is our strength." And at the center of it all was a simple truth. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their loyalty, memory, and courage were forces that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, could ignore. Elias finally allowed himself to sit, placing the photograph carefully on the edge of the control panel. It was a small thing, a simple image, yet it had shaped the outcome of the night. It was proof that even the smallest actions, carried across time and distance, could have consequences far greater than anyone imagined. And in the eyes of Lureth, alive and safe once more, Elias saw the beginning of a new understanding. The galaxy had been reminded that humans could change the course of events not through dominance, but through devotion. And in that truth lay both hope and power, a promise that would shape the battles and alliances yet to come. Elias rose and looked out over the city, feeling the quiet hum of life returning to the streets. Somewhere in the distance, the surviving members of the coup retreated, nursing wounds and reconsidering the recklessness of their ambitions. Humans, they would learn, were not predictable. They were not weak. They remembered, they protected, and they acted with a force that no amount of planning could fully anticipate. And as the dawn painted the capital in golden light, Elias understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would never be the same again, not because humans sought power, but because they had chosen to act when others would not. Somewhere in the palace, Lureth smiled, aware that the past and present had converged in a way that would alter the future. She turned to Elias. "You carried me once, and now once more. The galaxy will see that humans are not to be dismissed. And perhaps, in time, it will understand what it truly means to remember, to protect, and to choose loyalty above all else." And he knew with certainty that the future had already begun to change because humans had chosen to act. The aftermath of the coup rippled far beyond the walls of the Aurelian capital. Across the Dominion, whispers and rumors spread like wildfire. The forces that had tried to seize control were scattered, their communications intercepted, their plans unraveled. But more importantly, the galaxy had witnessed something it had long underestimated. Humans acting decisively, strategically, and without hesitation to protect another species. Elias Rowan moved through the palace once more, coordinating cleanup, reinforcements, and security. Every hallway and chamber carried the traces of the night's battle, scorched walls, dislodged panels, and the faint scent of burned circuitry. Yet amid the destruction there was life. Citizens cautiously stepped out into the streets, sensing safety restored, while the loyalists of Lureth rallied to repair the damage. Humans, quiet and disciplined, oversaw key operations. They did not seek praise, only results. Lureth observed from the command center, her presence commanding, yet her expression thoughtful. She had seen empires rise and fall, but what she had witnessed last night was unprecedented. Humans did not fight for glory, nor for conquest. They fought because they had chosen to act. Their strength was subtle, invisible to those who relied only on technology or brute force, and it was terrifying in its effectiveness. "They underestimated us," Elias said quietly, his eyes scanning the holographic map of the city. "They thought loyalty and memory were weaknesses. They do not understand that humans act differently. Once we choose someone or something to protect, nothing else matters. They will realize too late that humans are not predictable, and that is what makes them dangerous." And the galaxy, observing from afar, began to take notice. Meanwhile, Lureth convened a council with trusted allies. Holodisplays projected the positions of remaining dissidents and potential threats. Representatives of other species attended, their faces showing a mixture of awe and caution. No one doubted the scale of the human contribution, and some even questioned how such a small species could have orchestrated a counterattack that not only saved the princess, but stabilized an entire capital. "They are remarkable," muttered one diplomat from the Erythian sector, a species known for their rigid hierarchy and absolute control over information. No one expected this level of precision, coordination, and instinct from humans. That is what the galaxy cannot measure or predict. The Dominion's enemies were not defeated. They were regrouping, observing the human interventions, and reconsidering their next moves. Lureth, now more confident in her position, proposed a series of coordinated actions to stabilize the political landscape while exposing the coup leaders. Human operatives would assist discreetly, intervening where necessary but remaining invisible to the wider galaxy. Elias and his team began mapping the network of traitors. Communications were intercepted, supply chains disrupted, and alliances weakened, all without revealing the hand of humanity. It was a delicate dance of intelligence and precision, one that relied on the human ability to act unpredictably, to exploit weaknesses that others overlooked. Outside the palace, the city slowly returned to life. Citizens ventured into the streets, aided by human teams ensuring safety and stability. Hospitals and shelters operated under human guidance, their calm and efficiency preventing panic. Elias observed quietly, noting how the smallest actions, directing civilians, repairing infrastructure, securing exits, had the effect of restoring trust and morale. Humans did not need to dominate, they needed only to act decisively, and in that act, power followed naturally. As the sun rose over the capital, its light illuminating both the scars of battle and the resilience of the people, Lureth convened a private meeting with Elias. "You have changed the perception of humans tonight," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The galaxy will no longer dismiss you, and that is a dangerous truth for some but a hopeful one for others. We act because we must. Recognition is secondary. Humans have survived not because empires feared us, but because we never abandon those who matter. The galaxy will see that human strength lies not in numbers or technology, but in memory, loyalty, and the willingness to act." Reports from various sectors highlighted the precision, efficiency, and dedication of human operatives. Every move was calculated yet fluid, anticipating and countering the opposition with uncanny accuracy. Even in distant corners of the Dominion, whispers spread. Humans were no longer simply a minor species, they were a force to be considered. Other civilizations began reassessing their assumptions, realizing that the species they had dismissed as fragile and emotional possessed qualities that could change the course of galactic events. Back in the palace, Elias and Lureth moved through the city's command network, coordinating responses and repairs. The palace itself, though scarred from the battle, stood as a symbol of resilience. And at the center of it all was the bond between human and alien, forged in a night of chaos, risk, and unwavering loyalty. "Do you ever worry," Lureth asked quietly, "that humans will be drawn into conflicts they do not fully understand? We act not because it is convenient or profitable, but because it is necessary. That choice makes all the difference." Human teams withdrew from visible positions, leaving behind order, confidence, and the subtle reassurance that the palace and its people were safe. Lureth moved among her loyalists, directing repairs and organizing defenses, her confidence bolstered by the unseen guidance of the humans she now trusted implicitly. In his quarters, Elias finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. The photograph rested on his desk, a silent witness to the chain of events that had begun years ago and culminated in the night's triumph. It was more than a memory, it was proof of what humans could do when they chose to act. And it was a reminder that the galaxy's assumptions about their weakness were dangerously, fatally wrong. From his window, he observed the city bathed in the pale light of the rising moons. The coup had been repelled, but the consequences would echo far and wide. Already, communications from distant sectors reported astonishment, curiosity, and caution regarding human actions. They had survived, and in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy of a truth that could not be ignored. Humans were not predictable, and when they remembered, they acted with a force that could reshape empires. The photograph, now illuminated by the soft glow of the room, seemed to pulse with significance. It had begun as a small, private token, a memory of loyalty and courage. Now it symbolized a turning point, the moment when the galaxy began to see humans for what they truly were, guardians, protectors, and agents of change. Lureth entered the room quietly, her expression contemplative. She approached the photograph, her eyes tracing the familiar features of her younger self. "This image," she said softly, "has carried more than memory. It has carried intent, courage, and the power to remind others of what is possible." The humans, once underestimated, had proven their value not through conquest or dominance, but through the simple, powerful act of choosing to protect, remembering the past, and acting decisively when it mattered. And somewhere across the Dominion, distant observers took note. Aliens who had dismissed humans as insignificant began to reconsider. The galaxy would be watching more closely, measuring the consequences of loyalty, memory, and courage. Humans had acted once more, and in doing so they had altered the perception of a species that few had expected to matter. As night fell once more, Elias and Lureth remained in the command chamber. Outside, the city rested, but vigilance remained. The coup's remnants were still out there, plotting, regrouping, and watching. But the galaxy had seen that humans were more than their size, more than their technology, more than the labels others had assigned them. They were capable of changing the future, quietly, decisively, and without hesitation. Elias placed the photograph carefully back into his uniform. It was no longer just a memory. It was a symbol of the force humans carried. Memory, loyalty, courage, and the quiet power to act when the galaxy thought they would not. And as he looked at Lureth, alive and resolute, he knew that the next moves would be even more crucial. But for now, humanity had proven that it was a force the galaxy could not ignore. The galaxy was watching. Across distant systems, reports of human intervention in the Dominion had spread like sparks igniting dry fuel. Alien civilizations that had long dismissed humans as insignificant were suddenly forced to reconsider their assumptions. A species small in size, lacking centuries of empire, and considered unpredictable had just altered the course of an entire civilization. And at the heart of it all was a single truth. Humans remembered, humans acted, and humans never abandoned those they had chosen to protect. Elias Rowan moved through the Aurelian capital, coordinating with both human operatives and Lureth's loyalists. The palace, though scarred from the earlier coup attempt, was now a bastion of stability. Every hallway, every chamber, every gate had been secured. Humans had reinforced security systems, repaired structural damage, and ensured that the remaining citizens were safe. It was quiet work, meticulous and disciplined, yet it carried the weight of immense consequences. Lureth stood beside him, her eyes scanning the city from the high balcony of the palace. She had survived one coup before, but this one had been different. Humans had acted not out of protocol or political gain, but out of loyalty and memory. Their presence had tipped the balance, saving not only her life but the stability of her entire realm. She turned to Elias, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and awe in her gaze. "You carried me before," she said softly. "And now, once more, humanity has shown me what it truly means to protect and endure. The galaxy will remember this night." That is what others fail to understand. Their goal was clear: destabilize the region, undermine Lureth's rule, and eliminate humans who had shown themselves to be unexpectedly dangerous. Elias anticipated this. Human teams were already in position, monitoring communications and ready to intervene. Their operations were quiet, invisible, yet decisive. Every move calculated, every decision guided by the same principle that had saved the princess. Act when it matters, protect those who cannot protect themselves, and never underestimate the power of memory and loyalty. In the palace's command chamber, Lureth reviewed the latest intelligence with Elias. "The coup leaders are regrouping," she said. "They believe that by retreating, they can plan again. They do not understand that humans will not allow the same mistake twice. We will exploit it, and we will protect the Dominion fully." Every action demonstrated precision, discipline, and courage, the qualities that the galaxy often overlooked in humans. As night fell once more, Lureth prepared to address the Dominion's council. She stood tall, her voice carrying across the chamber, filled with authority and respect. "The coup has been repelled," she declared. "Our citizens are safe, and our loyal forces remain steadfast. But we must acknowledge the true force that preserved our stability. Humans, a species long underestimated, acted with courage, precision, and loyalty beyond measure. Their actions have changed not only the outcome of this conflict, but the perception of humanity across the galaxy." Shock, awe, and caution mingled on their faces. Some whispered to one another, realizing too late that the humans they had dismissed could not only fight but could reshape outcomes through their choices, memory, and determination. Lureth continued, her gaze sweeping over the council. We are not alone in this galaxy. We rely on allies who act not for power but for principle. Humans are such allies. They remember, they protect, and they endure. And because of that, we are stronger, safer, and wiser than we were yesterday. Yet here they stood, the pivotal force that had saved a princess, preserved a capital, and altered the trajectory of an empire. It was a revelation the galaxy could not ignore. Elias felt a quiet satisfaction, not for personal glory, but because the truth of humanity had finally been acknowledged. Humans had survived, not through sheer force or dominance, but because they acted decisively, remembered their debts, and never abandoned those they had chosen to protect. Later in the palace gardens, Lureth and Elias walked together, the night air calm after the storm. The city below was alive again, citizens moving cautiously, yet with a sense of security restored. Repairs were underway, and life was slowly returning to normal. You have carried me across time and space, Lureth said quietly, and humanity has proven what I suspected all along. Your strength is not in weapons, nor fleets, nor technology. It is in memory, in loyalty, and in courage. It is in remembering what matters and in acting because it matters. Humans survive because we choose, and when we choose, we are relentless. That is the lesson the galaxy has learned, whether they realize it or not. Human operatives had coordinated the efforts quietly, ensuring that the opposition could not regroup without detection. Their actions were efficient, silent, and effective, reinforcing the principle that humans acted not for reward but for duty and loyalty. In the command chamber, Lureth reviewed the final reports. The coup was effectively over. The leaders had been captured or fled, and no significant civilian harm had occurred. The Dominion had survived, stabilized by the decisive actions of humans working alongside loyalist forces. The city was safe, the empire intact, and the future secure, at least for now. Turning to Elias, she said, "The galaxy has seen something extraordinary tonight. Humans are no longer a minor species to be ignored. They have shown that memory, courage, and loyalty are forces that cannot be measured, predicted, or controlled. That is our true strength. You carried me before, and now humanity has carried the Dominion. The galaxy will see that we are stronger because of your species, and perhaps in time it will understand what it truly means to remember, to protect, and to act with loyalty above all else." You carried my past, she said, and humanity now carries our future. And in that moment, Elias understood that humanity's place in the galaxy had been forever changed. Over the following days, news of the event spread across interstellar networks. Other civilizations took note of the humans' actions, revising their assessments of a species they had long underestimated. Ambassadors, diplomats, and leaders began to reconsider their strategies, acknowledging that humans were not to be dismissed, underestimated, or controlled. In the palace, Lureth met with representatives from other species, recounting the decisive human interventions that had saved her life and stabilized the Dominion. Each story reinforced the same truth. Humans acted when others faltered, they remembered when others forgot, and they protected when others abandoned. The galaxy had learned an enduring lesson. Elias, standing quietly in the background, observed the scene. Humans had not sought recognition, nor had they demanded reward. Their actions had been guided by principles older than empires, rooted in memory, loyalty, and courage. And in doing so, they had secured a future not only for the princess and the Dominion, but for humanity itself. As the sun rose fully over the city, painting the towers and streets in golden light, Elias felt a profound sense of peace. The battle had been won, the coup defeated, and the galaxy reminded that humans were a species to be reckoned with, not for their weapons, not for their technology, but for their unwavering choice to act when it mattered most. Lureth turned to Elias once more, her expression resolute. You have carried me, and humanity has carried the Dominion. The galaxy will remember tonight. And perhaps in time, it will learn that the greatest power lies not in conquest, but in memory, loyalty, and courage. It represented the invisible force humans carried, the courage to act, the strength to protect, and the power of loyalty. The galaxy had witnessed it, and nothing would ever be the same. From that day forward, humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The Dominion had survived, strengthened by alliances, trust, and the quiet, decisive force of human action. And somewhere in the stars, Empires that had long dismissed humans began to reconsider, knowing that when humans chose to act, the galaxy itself could change. And in the quiet moments, as Elias watched the city awake to a new day, he understood the truth that had guided him across years, battles, and light years of space. Humans act when it matters most, and when they choose, their memory, loyalty, and courage can reshape worlds. The galaxy had learned that lesson, and it would never forget.